Welcome, everybody. My name is Kathy Nelson. I'm the CEO and founder of the Photo Managers. If you've been a part of this career advice from a pro, it's something that we've done every month for many years now, where I interview different professional photo managers, and I always ask the same 5 questions. So if you've never listened to one of these before, you will definitely want to go back to our YouTube channel, which Isabel can drop in there and hear from different photo managers. We've talked to photo managers from different parts of the world, from all different kind of backgrounds, different focuses on their business. So it's a great way, especially if you're thinking about being a photo manager, to hear from different people with different backgrounds. And at the same time, we have a lot of professional photo managers who love to jump on and support their peers and learn about their backgrounds as well. So I'm excited today to bring you Susan Wallach. She is, in my mind, a fairly newer member, I think 2 years, right? But you'll tell us that in a minute. And she has jumped right in. She's been an amazing member of our community right away, offers a lot of advice to our members on our private Facebook page, especially anybody who's having tech trouble. I was having trouble just now trying to get my monitor to work correctly, and I was so glad it was Susan. She started with the great question, have you plugged it in and restarted yet? So I will turn it now over to Susan. Susan, welcome. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, how you found and how you came to be part of the Photo Managers?
Hi, Kathy. Thank you so much for inviting me to this opportunity here to share my story. I actually found it was Appo back then in 2019. And at the time, I was trying to figure out how to remove duplicates from my massive mess that I had created by backing up so many times my Apple libraries, my Lightroom catalogs on numerous devices, and whatnot. And actually through a link on someone's website, they had a little badge that said, the Association of Professional Photo Organizers. And I was like, what? Like, that's a thing, which is what many of us, I think, hear. And I clicked through to that and then saw, the potential of learning even more about, managing photos, deduping, and everything I needed to know. And it talked about doing this as a business. And in 2019, I was not quite ready to retire from my career that I was in, which was I was a webmaster for local government where I live. So I was not quite ready to retire yet. But when I saw Appo, which is now the Photo Managers, I thought, oh my gosh, this could be my transition out of my career into the next business. And yeah, that's how I learned about the Photo Managers. And so I've been a paying member, and initially I was just lurking, at least for that first year. And then of course, COVID hit. Well, when COVID hit for me, because I was the city's webmaster and probably the most knowledgeable about doing everything online. So whether that was running live meetings through Zoom, whether that was setting up, Facebook groups, doing live Facebook training, helping employees manage Microsoft Office 365, even though we'd had it in the city for about 6 years, people didn't understand how, OneDrive worked. They didn't understand syncing. And so all of a sudden I was being pulled in 1,000 different directions, and my days were very long and very stressful. And in January of 2022, I retired. I was done, sort of well done, you could say. And so I actively stood up my business. It took me about 6-7 months to decompress. I had also gained probably 45 pounds during COVID from all the stress and isolation and everything going on. So I've lost 35. I still have more to go, but I'm feeling a lot better, a lot less stressful. Running a business has its own stresses, of course, but yeah, it's been a marvelous journey, and I feel like just encouraged and held comfortably as I progress with this organization. So the business I created, it's called Save a Memory, and I'm in Longmont, Colorado. And it was just a natural transition for me because of all my tech skills over the years. But what I didn't know was the fine details of what everybody does behind the scenes to help people organize. And I'm a pretty organized person. Um, I understand tech left and right. I understand both PCs and Mac. So a little bit about my background and how I learned all this tech, because people say, how do you learn so much? I said, well, I've been just loving tech for a long time, and you can't swallow an elephant. So the sooner you start learning tech, the better off you're going to be. And the other superpower I have is I'm a self-taught learner. I love to learn. So I watch a lot of trainings. Um, I sign up for a lot of courses. I subscribe to professional training areas like LinkedIn training or uh, Kelby. Kelby Online from Scott Kelby. He teaches you a lot. So I'm always buying books and podcasts and training like that. So where did I start? Well, I actually was born in Canada. And then I grew up for my first few years until I graduated from high school in Michigan. And then my folks retired and they wanted to get the heck out of Michigan, which I don't blame them. So a few years before I graduated from high school, my parents purchased a piece of property on Maui in Hawaii. And so I was able to move with them and when I was 18 going on 19. And I I thought, because the question was posed to me by my parents, do you want to come with us or do you want to stay in Michigan and live with your brother until you can get out on your own? And I thought, if I don't go with them, I may not ever get over there. So I might as well go over there and see if I like it. And if I don't, I can always come back, was my thought. Right. And I thought that was very prescient because, even at 18, a lot of people don't know what they want. And so I went with them. And within 6 months, I had moved out of the house, found a roommate, and just worked at different places. And one of the very first jobs I had was as a secretary for property management for one of the resorts. And they brought in an IBM word processor. The one of the very first computers with the big 8-inch floppy disks, and I fell in love. Even though I was the secretary, I was not the data processor. I was like, oh my gosh, I love this thing. I love what it can do. I love the potential of it. And so I learned a little bit of it being the backup for the person that was running it, was, paid to run it. And I looked at the manuals and I studied it. And so, although my time was limited there with whatever was going on in the early 80s, I think this was like maybe 82, 83, they had to let me go. And because they didn't want to fire me, they moved me to the as a starter for their golf course because they own the golf course too. So off I went for a few months and I realized I am not a morning person. So, the idea of having to get to work at 5:30 in the morning to start golfers at 6 a.m. was not my thing. So I started looking in the paper to see what I could do. And somebody was looking for a data processor at another hotel. And so I went and I got that job. Even though I had very little knowledge, I knew myself that once they hired me, they'd put me in a room with a manual and this computer and I could teach myself anything.
Yeah. Then
And
what's amazing about this story that you're telling is we always say there's three things that for people that are considering becoming a photo manager, we say there's three things that are really important. One is, do you see yourself as a lifelong learner? Because learning is a big part of the process, right? The technology keeps changing. And it doesn't mean that you have to learn on your own. You can learn with assistance, or like I mentioned at the beginning of the call, Susan answers people's questions is a big kind of like you become like the help desk for a lot of professional photo managers who get stuck in different areas. She's more than so gracious with her time and help. but the willingness to learn is such a kid important part. Let me bring you up to current though with your business that you have now. One of the questions I was like, what is it that you love most about the business that you have now? Now that you're not in the, stressed out in the, helping everybody tech support during COVID, and so what do you love about the business that you have now?
I love the interaction that I have with my clients, from, hearing their their inquiries, what issues they have surrounding whatever it is whatever the reason is they called me. And because I come from a solution background, in other words, you bring the problem, I bring the solution. That's always been, how I approach things. Um, I get excited. Like, I have an answer for you. I know how I can help you. And so that begins, a very nice um working relationship. And then when they bring me the project, I just love looking at what their family collection has. One of my first clients brought me such a good example of not only a variety of different aged prints that I had to figure out, what year or decade they came from, but then she found a bunch of old negatives. And I had taken a few courses because I do camera scanning. So I took a few courses on how to camera scan a variety of things. But then she was bringing me these negatives that, I think they're 120s or 160s. Anyway, um, I had to learn what a glass sandwich was so that I could put them between two pieces of glass and then photograph them. And so it was a great learning opportunity. So I look at every single client as a great learning opportunity, and to, develop a working relationship and see how I can help them in a variety of ways with my knowledge.
So that leads me. So how have you found your clients?
Well, early on, and also being, a webmaster for over probably 30 years, because I started in the mid 90s. I taught myself HTML, and used to go down to user groups down in Denver, and I'd be like one of the only females in a room of men, that were all learning, how to code and stuff. And when I got the job at the city, you know, I I actually got hired as a records manager and a webmaster. So right brain, left brain, if you can think of it that way. So because I built the first website for the city that was one of my businesses, one of my side businesses, was building websites. So I became the city, they put out an RFP, and I built the city's first website, and then they needed somebody to maintain it going forward. And that was my foot in the door, so to speak. Um, but when I had all that background of, building a good website, that's number one. Make sure it's SEO ready, because if you've got the search engine, loving you, that's going to help. And so I made sure that my website had, and I started getting clients with just 2 pages, mind you. I had a homepage and a contact us page, right? So it really doesn't take much. I just want to put that out there. But it has to be what it is that you do, and it has to float to the top of the search engines, and it has to be optimized for the search engines and whatnot. And I started doing Google ads. I wasn't doing Facebook ads in the beginning, but I did a few Google ads, made sure my Google business listing was good. And so I launched my website in August, and by the end of November, people were finding me on the web.
And have you got most of your clients then through your online web approach, as opposed to networking out in the community and things like that?
Yes. For me, that was the way that I did it. I believe that the search engines are basically like the best, um, you know, tool for me, because when you dial in your website, then you know the kind of customer that you want and what services you offer. And then when they're searching for different services, the search engine will connect you. So I think networking is great. And I have gotten a couple of clients from my previous uh, job, coworkers. The city itself has reached out to me for a couple of things. Um, but I knew not to rely on that. I knew that my clientele could be anybody, didn't have to be necessarily people I knew. And
It's
so,
important too, I think in terms of for people listening too, that your business probably is remote. You can work with clients anywhere because of the way your business model. And this is why it's so important to listen to the different career advice from a pro. Because I think about Cheryl, who we did, Cheryl Frank in Maryland. She gets most of her clients from her going to the dog park, which was great, like kind of a funny, like totally different way of saying it that she got clients. But right, you're able to work with clients anywhere, right? Do you have are you finding clients in different parts of the country or the world even finding you?
yes, yes.
Yeah.
And actually, I have a new client from New York, and I really believe that they found me through my Facebook ads. And I don't run ads all the time. So sometimes people have this fear of, having to pay, tens of hundreds of dollars a day for months and months on end to get traffic. Nope. I turn it on, especially right as I'm wrapping up a project. I kind of give myself 2 to 3 weeks and I start those ads again. And then all of a sudden I start getting requests and then I turn the ads off and I do the work. And so it's this, turn them on, get the business, turn them off.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's great approach. And I think that's amazing. Another question I have, then I always ask, like, what do you love most about your job? But I always feel like it's really important to share both sides of the coin, right? And so what are some of the things that frustrate you about your new business?
Early on, I not having, any clients at the moment and just digesting all the content that you guys provide. I think I've early on, I wasn't attending a conference because, of course I had another job, but I purchased the virtual courses and then trying to go through all that material. So while I was decompressing from my previous career, before I was ready to, ramp up again, I was really just, committing to learning. And I remember calling you, and I I think you basically said, I think you know enough. Just start.
I could imagine I would have said that to you listening to, even as I listen to you now, I'm thinking, yeah, you're, I'm sure I would, yeah, just jump in. And then here you are, right? Like,
Yes. And one of the things that I tell people is, a lot of people have heard the story, with families, and this happened to my brother. He and his wife early on in their marriage, they wanted children and they couldn't get pregnant. So they couldn't get pregnant and they couldn't get pregnant and they couldn't get pregnant. And then they adopted a child and then she got pregnant, right? So it's in thinking that I don't have a client, I don't have a client, I don't have a client. And that mentality will keep you from getting clients. And so what I tell people is I give them the baby analogy. Find somebody that, whether it's a friend, family, neighbor, that can entrust in you to give you your first project, somebody that you know. And if they can't afford your rates that you want to charge, give them a awesome deal that they can't refuse. And when you remove the I don't have a client feeling, a client will come.
yeah, yeah. And we're seeing I mean, so many of our members, like I feel like we're just at, I mean, we've been saying this for years, I always say, but we really, the consumer no longer ask the question like, do I need help? They know, people know that they need help. There's no question. And we are the company, the people that they're turning to, from the partnerships we have with amazing companies that are, offering our concierge services now, where we have software companies who are saying hire a photo manager, on their websites because they need our help to get people, ramped up into their software, like with Milio or Trustworthy, all the way to everybody needs help, at this point with both their digital and their analog, their huge collection of printed photos that they have. And so what services do you provide, or what is your sweet spot in your business in terms of when a client, like who's your ideal client, I guess is what I'd ask.
Anybody.
Anybody's breathing with
Well, anyone that can afford my services. So my background, again, I went from loving that IBM word processor to desktop publishing to working for a printer to being a well, I never got certified, but I was a network administrator. A CNA is a certified network administrator. I also was the social media manager for the city. So my background is I can do everything from graphics to desktop to, creating books to creating videos, editing videos, all sorts of things. So I love the variety. I love to be challenged. So when my first clients came along, it was scanning physical media. So scanning the prints but I've been creating slideshows since I could scan in the early 2000s. I had gosh, those scanners back then, the flatbeds were so heavy and they connected with an old SCSI port and so you had to learn all the different technology and everything. And I bought my first Mac in 2005. So I've been Apple and PC. In government, they typically don't like Apple devices. So, I used to build PCs. That's the kind of background I have. I would upgrade, tear down, and rebuild my friends' computers as they needed to along the way. So replacing hard drives and upgrading RAM. I even replaced my own motherboard at one point. So I'm all over the board. And so when people come to me, I love to help them understand security, backing up, where are their files going to live, maybe issues in uh, duplicates, whatever it is. I can
Yeah,
help people.
you're able to say A to Z, right? And
A
not
to
every
Z.
people stay, in different tracks, but it's amazing. Tell us about, so one thing that Susan did also, is it maybe been 6 months now? You started a podcast. We've had two members in Australia, the DIY photo organizing podcast, which Chantel, and they've been doing that for a number of years. But you and Allison, another member, tell us about your podcast. We'll put a link in here and how that came to be.
Well, when I went to Florida for last year's conference, during that time, I was sitting at a table and looking at this bingo card that said, "Take a picture of Allison Friedman."
Oh, I think I forgot this story. Yeah. Okay.
And I had seen her somehow, so I could put a face to the name. And she came over to our table, and I said, "Whoa, hang on, I got to take a picture of you." And that's sort of how our friendship began. And she's like, "Why?" And I showed her this little, uh, bingo card that said, in order to cross off that square, you need to take a picture of Allison. And so afterwards, or on our breaks, I just chatted with her briefly and learned that she was a previous attorney in her former career. And having worked at the city, I worked with attorneys every single day. My job was not only as a webmaster and previous records manager, but also to ensure the safety of many things in regards to the city. And in contract negotiations, I was often involved for ADA accessibility for the software that the city purchased, right? So I was the ADA coordinator for many of our websites. And one of the things that I learned to love and respect were the city attorneys. So attorneys aren't always loved, is what Allison would tell me. And I said, "Oh, I love attorneys," and I gave her a big hug. And so after that, we were chatting about something. I don't remember what it was. A few months, we're now back home and we're chatting about something. And I've had this desire for a long time, and it was to do a podcast, to interview people and learn more. Again, back to the learning, and share knowledge. And it just happened that the best approach for me to take is to do it about this new business I have that I'm still learning myself. And I said, I thought it would be best if I had a partner so we could play off of our strengths. And I just blurted out one day on a call, "Hey, do you want to do a podcast with me?" And she went, "Yes." I mean, like, didn't even have to think twice. And I was like, that was really fast. She goes, "Well, I had been thinking about doing a podcast." So yeah, I just looked it up. We've been doing this since August of last year, and we average about 700 listeners right now a month. So it's very exciting. We've had several guests, you included, And it is a great way to learn about services, how people do things. So I want to encourage everybody, including people who are not photo managers currently, or who belong in, who are part of our association, to hop on and listen, because it's for you as well. It's for the professionals and the do-it-yourselfers.
Great. Yeah, that's an example of your that can-do attitude. And let's just start a podcast. And so the last couple questions I have for you before we go to questions and stuff. So please put your questions in the chat. There is how has membership to the Photo Managers been helpful to you? The Photo Managers Association helped you in your business, and for those that are thinking about it, what has that process been like for you?
Oh my gosh, it's huge. So I'm going to take you back to my career in the city. So as a webmaster, it was very isolating. I was the only one. Even in our IT department, I didn't have a backup. I mean, people kind of knew what I did. There were a lot of times where I was out of pocket, and I still had to take my laptop, because if something went, down the toilet, I would have to try and resurrect it remotely. And I would travel, and I would always have to try and make sure that wherever I went, I had an internet connection so I could hop on and remote in if something was going on, because I didn't really have a backup for many, 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 many years. And then I learned the benefit of cruising. So I would take purposefully trips on large cruise ships for a couple of weeks so I could be out of pocket. And I'd tell them, you know what? You'll hear from me every once in a while when I get to a port and get on land, and then I can check my messages. So unless it's an emergency, you won't hear me for a while. So the Photo Managers is very similar to an association that we as webmasters began to create ourselves in government. And it was called, and it still is, it's called NAGWA, the NAGW. When I started, it stood for National Association of Government Webmasters. Now they've changed it, and it's like National Association of Web Professionals or something like that. Because when I started, think of the person that had to know how to stand up a server, how to stand up email, how to create a website, how to protect the server, how to train people on how to, manage the website, how to do graphics, how to do, live streaming, how to upload video, how to serve up all this content, folder structures, everything. And now you've got people that just do one thing, like, they're just front end. They only do the content, right? They don't do the back end development or anything like that. So truly being a webmaster was that bootstrap kind of career, that you were the person that did everything back then. And so it was very helpful to go to the conferences when I was at the city for NAGWA, because we had peers, just like in the association here, teaching us, because everybody's at a different level and sharing their knowledge. And we would bring in speakers that were specific to our career. And it was so, so helpful. And as soon as I knew that you guys were doing conferences, I signed up regardless of the cost, because it's a business expense. And that's how you network and learn.
Yeah, right. Here you are. You met Allison, and I just put a link in there that our conference, for those listening, we'd love to have you. It's in Columbus in April. We're really excited. We've just finally put all the breakouts on the website, and we also do it virtually. We learned after COVID, we do it 4 weeks later because it's a little too stressful to do two at the same time. And all the speakers agree to speak twice, so you can attend virtually, and we have great ways that you connect with other members through. We use a different program called Remo, which is like you come into little tables and things like that. So that's a little plug for our conference. Well, you know what? Let's, Susan, it's amazing. One last question I might ask, if people are listening thinking, wow, she knows so much about technology and I don't know all those things, like maybe is this the right business for me? How do you respond? Because obviously you've been doing it since you were breathing almost, it sounds like, right? In that natural tendency. And so that you can figure, I guess, behind me, can you all see it? Probably, yeah. I have my favorite saying I have two sayings here in my office. One is everything is figure outable. So that, whenever you get stuck, if you take a deep breath, you can probably figure it out. And there's always Google, or there's other people you can ask. And the other is it's okay to be brave and afraid at the same time, which is a Brene Brown quote that I love, because many times you're doing things for the first time, your first client, you're going to be afraid and brave at the same time, right? So any words of wisdom though on that concept of people thinking, is this for me because I may not have the skill set like with the background that you have?
Well, do what you love. Always follow what you love. And that's been my ticket to where I'm at today. Is my journey across all my different careers has just been, one thing laying on top of the other. And so start wherever you are. And then as you can, learn the next thing. So if you just like to do photo books, there is a business for that. You can learn flatbed scanning first before you get into camera scanning. And there's many partners that we have. So you can connect with another photo manager, or you can, if you're wanting to, you can use some of our third-party partners to help you with the digitizing even. So there's really no excuse if you're looking to make this a career that you can't there's no stop to your entry, meaning you could start anywhere, really.
Yeah, right. I agree. Yeah, and we have many people who do from, A to Z, right? And so, well, this has been fascinating, Susan. I love your background. I'd love to we're excited. We're going to be together with a group of members at Roots Tech in a couple of weeks, which is next week, actually, the largest genealogy conference. It's in Salt Lake City. It's going to be really fun. So we intersect in so many spaces, though. It's amazing how the photo managers belong in the world of genealogy and archiving. We belong in professional photography world, and we belong in move senior, working with seniors and AARP. I mean, there's so many, we cut across every different kind of business model in a lot of ways. Everybody needs help with their photos, videos in all sorts of different spaces. So Isabel, let's turn it over to you to see. I think I've noticed some questions coming in. So.
Yeah, we had a question. The first one was about the Google ads that you mentioned that you run. How do you ensure or help get your Google ads to the top of the page?
So there's not much that you can do with that, because once you sign up for a Google ad, it's up to Google to place those ads. Okay, so when you see a sponsored ad in your Google searches, or you're watching a video on YouTube and you see an ad come up, that's where you have to create an engaging ad with great photos so that it can be noticed and then people can click on it. It's kind of interesting to make sure that your Google business page is set up and that you're asking for reviews. And the time to ask for a review is when they are so excited about this finished project that you just handed them and they're about to cry. That is the time to ask them, hey, would it be possible for you to give me a review? I'm sort of a new business, and it's really important to let others know that I do a good job. And I have not had someone turn me down. I actually had a customer say, Susan, what you need to say is, Gary, I need a 5-star review from you. I haven't quite gotten to that part.
What's really interesting? I had hired an attorney to do to trademark the photo managers and also our certification. And when she signed off with me on the last trademark, she said, "Can I?" She called it offboarding, and then she said, "Do you mind if I record this conversation?" And I said, "No." And then she said, "Tell me, what is it? What did you like about my service?" And as I was talking, she was quickly typing what I wrote, and then she said, "Would you mind if you could just take this is what you wrote, and I can link right here the Google review, and you just have to copy and paste it into the Google review." And I was like, I did it because it was so easy. So she literally walked me through the process. But anyway, so that's kind of an interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely a great approach. And wherever you can list your business again, that's free to you, I would do that. Let your neighbors know. I actually had gotten a little bit of some tread going through Nextdoor. I've promoted myself, and I have a separate business page on Nextdoor. And it all of a sudden it took one person calling me and me quickly turning around whatever it was. She had a wedding to go to, and they wanted 5 printed photos that were black and white so that they could be shown or displayed on display at their wedding, of people who couldn't attend the wedding because they have passed on. And so she drove over to my house. I scanned them and I printed out, I did color correcting and photo retouching for them. And I printed out the 5x7s that they needed. And she absolutely, just adored all of that work that I did for her. And she got back on Nextdoor and said, "Oh, Susan's great." Well, that was all that it took. And all of a sudden I had a couple of more clients calling me for other services like VHS, I do movie conversions and whatnot. And so I've done at least 2 or 3 people from that one post. So, see if you can get some tread going there. Get your reviews, make sure your website is number one. I can't speak enough about that because that's your first impression, for people. And if links don't work, they're not coming back. If the colors don't work, again, with my ADA background, accessibility, the American Disabilities Act, if it doesn't work for people on all devices, and the color contrast is not there, so they can't read your content very well. They don't know what a link looks like because it's not, underlined or blue, or it doesn't activate something different when you hover over it. That's a barrier. So remove all the barriers.
All right.
Yeah, Susan's taught me a lot about websites, and I really appreciate her help. She's amazing. And someone in the comments said that, or in the chat said that, check out your local community colleges for free webinars and training, because they had one on Google Ads. So that's something to keep in mind if you're looking for free resources in your area. I included in the chat, but can you repeat again, Susan, what the name of your podcast is and how to access
Oh, sure. Yeah, for those that are interested, you can find us on all your favorite podcast apps. You can also go to insidephotoorganizing.com, where we've got the feed there. So if you prefer to just play it on a computer through a browser window, or if you're like me and you like to listen while you're walking the dog, you can look for us on any of your podcast players. We're on Apple and Google and Pocket Cast. We're on all of them.
And I know that you've helped recently with some of the changes, some members with their website, but there's a question, would you ever do a website review for other TPM members?
Would I do a website review? Do you mean like evaluate it for?
I think
for the
so.
color, yeah, kind of you were saying all those things.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I would be happy to discuss that and talk about pricing. There was a funny video that one of my clients sent to me after I sent him his invoice, and he sent back a funny video, which I shared on our photo managers about billing time. I think we all have a little angst about charging and how much do you figure out, what you're going to charge people. And I know that was a struggle for me. And I don't know if anyone else is just getting started and figuring that out, but you got to start somewhere. So pricing is another challenge.
Yeah, and learning your value and understanding and then helping the client understand the value and the amount of time it really takes,
yes,
right? That's the other part that people underestimate.
It's a lot. And I saw a recent post, somebody asking in the photo managers about whether or not this could be a full-time business. Oh, for sure. A lot of us do it. And even me getting started, I have the luxury of now being retired, having access to some additional funds to support me as my business grows. But if I did not, you could certainly start this part-time until you grew it to a point where you could let that other position go.
And for newer members who are starting their photo organizing business, do you have recommendations for a website design app or software, and where to get your website domain?
So my recommendation is that you purchase your domain from a domain registrar. Try not to bundle it all in. You could go to Wix or Squarespace. I personally use Squarespace. And the reason being is I have hand coded and I have built WordPress and Joomla websites for so many years. I know what the pitfalls are, and I do not want to have to worry about getting hacked. So I built myself a Squarespace site, but my domain is at hover.com. I like to keep things separate when it comes to my website, and then my email, I use fastmail.com as an email provider. That's all that Fastmail does, is just email. So Squarespace is where I host my website. I would recommend that, or Wix, but don't buy your domain through that company. It's a lot easier to manage it separately. There's a lot of disruption happening right now because Google used to manage domains, and they're not anymore. And so you know, when they started doing that, I thought that was kind of an interesting thing. But now if you do have a domain that was purchased through Google, it ends up in Squarespace. So that handoff is uncomfortable. So if you buy a domain with a domain provider and that's all they provide is domain and email, that's your best bet. So even something like GoDaddy, but I just don't like their constant like attempts to upgrade you to another service or product. I don't like that constant advertising. So I went with Hover. They leave me alone.
All right, so some other people are mentioning Wix and things. So this has been great, Susan. I mean, thank you so much for sharing your expertise. Again, check out Susan's podcast, check out her website. I'm going to drop a note at chat, Zoom link, and here we are doing a once a month or sometimes twice a month. I do a webinar on, you know, how to become a professional photo manager, the pros and cons, the what is included in membership. I have one of those tomorrow, so you're welcome to join me on that. We also have a new membership level called Photo Managers in Training, which we just launched in January. We've had over close to 60 or 70 people, I think, now join. That's a 1 year, it's $299, and you're really getting your own photos organized while deciding if you want to start a business. So that's another option that we have available as well. I mentioned coming to our conference, Meet Susan, right? We'll be at a conference, and but we do an annual conference every year. So if you don't come this year, you can always come next year. So Natasha says, thanks for generously giving your expertise to fellow members. Much appreciated. Yeah. So Natasha's a member in South Africa, and she knows that Susan graciously answers a lot of tech questions on our Facebook group, and has, like Isabel said, even helped us, I think, with some of our colors on our website, and that we hadn't thought about. So that's what makes the Photo Manager such a great organization. So I always say, rising tide lifts all boats. And so everybody works together. There's no competition. We're collaborative, not competitive. And so Susan definitely is a great example of that. So thank you, Susan, so much for your time. Thanks all who joined us today. And we'll see you again next month with our next Career Advice from a Pro.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.